Okay, so if we were going to do, and you are going to do a project with a community, you're going to be working with the Heathcote Community House. But if we were going to do this for real, what I would actually do is I would get you to go there and spend a couple of months just listening. I'd get you to sit and listen to stories and hear about how organizations work and get a sense of the community and all of that kind of thing. Often what happens when we do community work is we get so focused on the problem is we forget that the context is far more important than the problem we're trying to solve. Okay, so the process I'm going to step you through now really is kind of a replacement for actually going and living in the community, because I'm pretty sure me demanding you go and live in the community is not viable for most of you. But it will help you to get an understanding of the community as a whole. The community situated on land, situated on history, situated on all of these different things. And that's really important, because sometimes what happens is we look at a problem, so we go, oh, well, obesity, and then we go, oh, well, we know how to fix obesity, and we create a project, but we haven't thought about the target audience. We haven't thought about the organizations that are motivated in that community. We haven't thought about who's going to implement it or any of that stuff. So this component is really important that we spend a good chunk of time investigating. For those of you who were in the first workshop, you've only really touched the surface, right? You need to go and do some more digging. So there's a number of stages that I'm going to step you through, and I've kind of outlined these a bit below, that I want you to collect a whole bunch of information. And this is going to help you to develop your, assessment too, but it's also going to help you to develop your project idea. So the first thing I want you to think about is the land, right? Often we miss this. Communities are situated on land, and for rural communities this is an even bigger issue, because the nature of the land that you're situated on actually has an impact on the nature of the community, right? So if you're in a farming area that's all totally flat, that's got good soil, chances are you're going to be in a cropping area, right? That has an influence on the community. I know in Heathcote there's a lake nearby. Now in the early days, 15, 20 years ago, if the lake had water in it, there were lots of people coming through Heathcote. If the lake didn't, there were none, because people came through Heathcote to get to the lake, and they would stop in Heathcote. So there was that income would kind of go up and then drop off to nothing. So the first thing I want you to do is investigate the physical characteristics. What's there? What are the resources? What are the attractions? What are the parks that are there? There's some national parks there. What's in those parks? Are they interesting? Are they just parks for forestry? What's there? Is it undulating? Is there certain types of soil? What's the soil good for? Okay, all of those kinds of things. Are there rivers? Are there streams? Are there waterholes? Are there swimming places? What is this location, right? So I want you to go and do a bunch of Googling. You can do this through a couple of different approaches. I'll provide this link. There's a website called MapShare that will allow you to kind of have an in-depth look at what's going on. Google Earth is another one where you can kind of have a look at the land. What is it? What do we use this land for? What's it good for? What's it not good for? Okay. What's the weather like? All of those kinds of things. So get a real understanding of that before you move on, because communities are situated on land. And that's super important before you kind of move on. Once you've done that, once you've spent some time investigating that, I want you to have a think about the first people that lived here, okay? Now, you've got the module in the LMS about First Nations, so Aboriginal people and history and all of that kind of thing. This really is about acknowledging that, in Australia there were many, many, many nations, okay? Many kingdoms, I suppose, and they thrived. The fact that that we've got the longest living community in Australia is amazing. This is 60,000 years of history of continuous community in Australia. And when I look at that, I think, wow, there's something to be learnt there. That if a community of people have managed to thrive in this place for longer than any other community in the whole world, maybe we can learn something. And so I want you to go and have a look and see what you can find out about the First Nations people that lived in the Heathcote region. Now, I'm acutely aware that sometimes there's a real lack of information. You may not be able to find things. So then broaden your circle, okay? If you can't find something about the Heathcote region specifically, you will find some stuff, then broaden it out to the Bendigo region, okay? What can you find out about how and why First Nations community were able to thrive in this area? What was it about this area? Why did they thrive? What were the cultural things going on? What languages did they speak? Who lived here? Why, what was rich about this? What did they eat? What are all of those things? What did they use the land for? How did they engage with the world? So I want you to go and do some investigating, see what you can find, but pay attention to what you can't find, okay? There are a bunch of gaps, and I won't go into the reasons for that, but I'm pretty sure you know there are a bunch of gaps in what we know about First Nations community, but there are a heap of things that we can learn about how to build healthy community in this region from First Nations community who've been doing it for 60,000 years. See what you can find, okay? There's some really interesting stuff out there that we can learn from, and that's super important. Now, finally, and this is often where we start, but really this is just the final piece. You know, this is, in the last couple of 100 years, colonization has obviously occurred. Local organizations have been developed. There's a history of Heathcote. Now, you will find some stuff on history, but I want you to have a look at what are the local institutions that are present in Heathcote. Okay, now this can be businesses, it can be local community organizations, it can be religious organizations. So I want you to really map out who's here, what's going on. Regardless of your views on religion, what you will find in Heathcote and in other rural communities is that in order to get things done, you need to bring a group of people together, and so you will actually have churches involved sometimes in community projects, okay? So I want you to have a look and see what are the local institutions. What are they doing? What are they motivated about? What are they engaged with? What are they interested in? What's their purpose? In Heathcote, there's a community plan. That's going to be important. What's on the community plan? Does it align with what you're proposing? The reality of any project is somebody other than you needs to implement it. Okay? So unless you have an understanding of the local organizations, the local motivation, the local drive, your project might be the best idea in the world, but unless someone wants to do it, it's probably not the best idea in the world. So have a look. Are there schools? Are there primary schools? Are there high schools? What does the health service do? For you as nursing students, this is going to be super important. What services do they provide? How big is the aged care facility? Do the aged care facility have a plan? They do. Where is it? What's it saying? What are the things that they're scoping towards? Okay, so investigate what are the local institutions. The combination of the understanding of the land, the understanding of the First Nations thriving in that space, and the understanding of local institutions is going to give you a really good foundation for understanding what might work into the future. Okay, so this is the foundation upon which you're going to be able to build a really solid project. I'm quite intentional about not sharing the project brief with you, the problem question, because I want you to understand who this project is for before you start thinking about a problem. Because at the end of the day, the project sits within the community. So understanding the community first is going to be super important. So those three things, gather those three things. I'm expecting some cut and paste, multiple pages, and you can share this with one another in your groups or with others. You don't have to do it in secret, but what can you learn about the physical characteristics, First Nations community, and the local institutions? Okay, go for it.